Greetings, gang. So today's kind of a serious topic, so there's going to be none of my usual chicanery, no funny jokes or special sound effects, except for that one, and that one, and one final special funny sound effect before we get started. My best friend and Zen colleague out here in Vienna, my homeboy, my boy that I run with or sit with, he flew back home to Florida where his mom lives about a month ago. And I just heard from him that his mom is going to die. So she has cancer and it's terminal. So he had thought he was going to visit her because she had pneumonia and some other problems, and turns out it's worse than that. So now he's going to be there as her caregiver and her companion during this final time of her life. So what I want to talk about today is, how do you do that? How do you be with someone on their deathbed? When I first met my Zen teacher, Joshu Sasaki Roshi, in, I think it was 2003, never in 1 trillion years did I imagine that he would be the very first person I ever saw die. I feel like I should add another funny sound effect here, just because I shouldn't. Okay. Being on Roshi's deathbed was one of the most profound privileges of my life. And it was also one of the most exhausting experiences of my life. So the first topic I want to bring up today is self-care. So forgive me for this. Self-care is not a term I really like to use. It seems like it's a marketing gimmick. I get this image in my head whenever I hear self-care of a baby lawyer man wearing diapers and throwing Gerber baby food at a massage therapist at a really trendy upscale spa and screaming, "Self-care, I came here for self-care." I don't know, is that just me? But if ever there was a circumstance where the term self-care is appropriate, it's for people who are taking care of people who are dying. My experience of being on my teacher's deathbed was that it took a ton of energy and mental crispness, if you will, in order to be with the person and present for the person who is passing away without being sucked into their death space. So that was a key distinction for me always when I was with Roshi, because he actually almost died a few times, and so I got some experience in this for when the final moments came. And the distinction was always try to be with him, but not get depressed or despairing or just enervated, listless and unenergetic. A deathbed is a powerful place. You need to take care of yourself so that you can meet the challenge and be with the person. Truly be with the person. Okay, so how do you take care of yourself then when you're a caregiver and you're in that caregiving space? Well, I'll tell you how you don't do it. Don't overeat. Don't start smoking again or vaping again. Don't fill a water bottle with vodka so you can take nips at it all day long. Don't start popping Vicodin to relax, or Adderall to stay awake, or edibles to chill out, or caffeine pills to pep you up. I found that there can be this feeling when you're in that caregiver crucible that all rules or standards of behavior that you normally hold yourself to are temporarily suspended due to the gravity and seriousness of your responsibilities, and you can maybe indulge in some of your weaknesses, right? Like, your mom's on her deathbed. Who's gonna begrudge you that fourth cheeseburger? In my personal experience, a little bit of this indulging goes a very, very long way. Ultimately, this temporary suspension of willpower in the arena of indulgences just makes you weaker, more exhausted, less sharp, less functional, less patient, and less loving. What really happens is your demons come and join you on the deathbed. And you know what? You really don't want that. Here are some choice items to put in your self-care deathbed goodie bag. Sleep, great food, bathing. Hospitals are gross. Make sure you bathe. Sleep. Did I mention sleep? Sleep. Tons of it. Twice as much as usual. Zazen. A decent amount of it. As much or more than usual. Did I mention sleep? Make sure you get a lot of it. Treat yourself to a healthy dinner out. Time spent away from deathbed. Preferably with children, very funny friends, or intimate partners who are good at foot rubs. All of this is better than that cigarette or whiskey sour or Oxycontin pill. Like I always say, deathbeds are for squares. You may have noticed a slightly jocular tone to this video, despite the fact that I promised you that this was very serious material. That is because I do not think that this approach is out of step with this topic. In my experience, deathbeds can be very funny, interesting, odd, surreal places with genuinely sublime surprises. When you are on a deathbed, Dorothy, you are not in Kansas anymore. So, for example, the day that my teacher died, the doctors had told us, look, this guy's been here for a week. We don't know how he's hanging on, but he is. And it's not really appropriate for him to stay in this hospital anymore, so you gotta take him back home. So we were all getting ready to take Roshi back home, right? And somehow this guy got into Roshi's room, and his name was, let's call him James McDougal, right? So James McDougal is like, he's kind of an eccentric character. He was like an Olympic skier. He wasn't, but I'm disguising his identity. He was an Olympic skier, and he had fallen and hit his head. He had his way of talking, and he talked like this. So he comes in, my monk's name was Gento, and he comes in the room and he's like, hi Gento, I gotta tell ya, one day when my mom was dying, it was very strange. She waited till I left the room, and he used an expletive here, and then slipped right out of the room. She died. She waited for me to leave, and then she died. And Roshi's other attendant and I were like, yeah, okay, whatever, dude. And so she went out to go shopping to prepare for Roshi's return, right? And then I'm sitting there. I was like watching, I think as I recall, I had my computer, the one I'm working on now, because I still got it. And I was watching 30 Rock with Tina Fey. And then suddenly Roshi started flipping dying. Exactly as James said. He waited till Roshi waited till his other attendant was out of the room, and there was just that numbskull sitting in the corner watching 30 Rock, and then Roshi started to slip away. All kinds of strange synchronistic moments like this happened on Roshi's deathbed. I don't even want to recount them all right now, or you'll pause this video because I'm overloading you with woo-woo. My point is that deathbeds are special places, some of the most special places on the planet. And if you can work with but not get overcome by your sorrow and your fear, if you can hold your together, you can be part of this experience. And it's like a keyhole into the other side. You're peering through a keyhole into the other side. Maybe you can catch a flash of it or a glimpse of it. So, how to be with the dying? This is the topic of this video, and I've actually managed to avoid addressing this topic until now, and yet you're still watching. So I consider that to be a success. Interestingly, the last 2 times that Roshi went out or left his apartment before he died was to go to 2 other deathbeds. They were kind of right in a row, and they were about a month before he died himself. So how did he be or comport himself on the deathbed of somebody else? The second to the last deathbed that he visited was a monk named Sokai. And Sokai was a saint. He was also a clown. He was a devoted student. He was funny. And he was one of the few older, seasoned students of Roshi that wasn't like stubborn as a mule. He was just gentle as a lamb. He was wily as a fox. And he was a beautiful human being. Okay, so he lived in Arizona. And Roshi was so tired because, as I mentioned, he was on his own deathbed. But he made me and his other attendant drive him in what he called the big car, which was this massive RV that a student had bought him. We had to pile into the RV, and I had to drive this thing to Phoenix with my own dying teacher. So we arrived. Roshi was beyond exhausted. Like, I really thought we had a situation where Roshi was going to die in Phoenix along with his beloved student Sokai. We're going to have like twin caskets and a dual funeral or something. It was like code red at the Hakuinji Zen Center. We wheel Roshi out to be with Sokai. I think it was like a Saturday morning. And they just sat across from each other and they just kind of stared at each other. And they entered this space together where one point they touched foreheads and they just stayed in that position for a timeless time, but in human terms it was long. It didn't feel long. They just touched like that. I remember them holding hands. Not much was said. So there was connection without a ton of words. No wasted language in that moment. No awkwardness in that moment. There was 2 guys meeting like 2 Zen masters, two beings, very, very close to taking the same path out of this life. And indeed, Sokai died, I think, the following day. And then Roshi was dead within a month, I think. My memory of how Roshi handled deathbeds was with great care and with silence and with humility and with no heaviness or awkwardness or weirdness. Boy, we've come to the end of this video and I don't have words for it. He was not thinking. He was doing a version of zazen or meditation with the person, but he wasn't being obvious about it. We weren't sitting there with mudras, ringing a bell and meditating. He was just quietly sitting and being with the person. And that this deathbed practice was an extension of, I mean, he was 108 years old when he died, and he went to the monastery when he was 14, so you do the math, it was an extension of that many years of practice, of being able to sit, as it's called in Buddhist tradition, the immovable spot, which was the space that the historical Buddha figure, Shakyamuni, took under the Bodhi tree the night he became enlightened. So he was tempted to be driven off the cushion by demons and tempted to be lured off the cushion by beautiful women, but he stayed in the immovable spot. So when you're on a deathbed, that's your immovable spot for the paranirvana, or the great enlightenment, which is another term for death in the Buddhist tradition. What the Buddha saw when he was sitting in that immovable spot eventually was the star that's the farthest star in the night sky. So he saw to the ends of the cosmos and became enlightened. And in some sense, that's what I think one is bearing witness to when one has the privilege to be on a deathbed with someone. I know that's a little bit highfalutin, and there's such great crashing tsunamis of sorrow on the deathbed, but I'll throw that out there and let it stand. Being on someone's deathbed is the equivalent of seeing or experiencing what the Buddha saw and experienced when he looked up into that night sky and witnessed the farthest star in the cosmos glowing brightly. Hope this video didn't bum you out too much. If it didn't, and you can hit the subscribe button and hit the like button, that would be great. Something happened to me on YouTube. I got put in algorithm prison, and my view counts have taken a huge hit. I'm not sure why. These algorithms are very mysterious, and I find it interesting. In any event, also, if you enjoy what you see on this channel and you want to support me, all this stuff is for free, but I'm going to leave a Patreon link for you in the video description below. You can go there and read some of my essays and blog posts and join a nice community there if you're so inclined. All right, until the next time, ciao.